In a quiet clearing deep in the forest, a terrifying demon towers over the hero's broken body. The few soldiers left alive fall into panic. One guard screams that they must retreat and yells at another soldier to run with him. But the young guard he shouts at does not move at all. His face stays calm, almost emotionless. In a quiet voice, he remarks that the story hasn't even truly started yet. That calm soldier is Silva. In the past, his deep understanding of this world's rules once made him extremely powerful. Now, however, he chooses to hide that strength from everyone around him. Ignoring the chaos behind him, Silva suddenly moves. His figure rushes forward so fast it becomes a blur, stopping the demon before it can attack again. The world Silva lives in is actually the same world as a game he once knew better than anyone. The game was called Brave of Asterisk, or Brias. In that RPG, players step into the role of the hero Alan, fighting powerful demons and building strong bonds with allies along the way. In his previous life, Silva was completely obsessed with this game. That life ended suddenly when he died from overworking at a cruel company that drained everything from him. Even so, he considers himself lucky. After dying, he was reborn inside the very world he loved so much. Now he lives a peaceful life as a simple gate guard in the capital city of Zalencia. Suddenly, a voice pulls him out of his thoughts and calls the name he now lives by Silva. An older guard named Ma tells him that it's time to change shifts. Silva nods and agrees. As he thinks about it, he admits that being reborn as the hero Alan might have been amazing, but honestly, his current life is pretty good too. As he prepares to leave, Ma reminds him not to forget to grab his usual food order. Silva then walks through the lively streets of town, feeling surprisingly satisfied with his life. Compared to the exhausting and miserable life he had before, working as a guard feels almost like heaven. He even gets paid during quiet hours when nothing happens. Soon, he stops by a street vendor to buy the meal he always orders. While walking away with his food, something nearby catches his attention. A merchant is arguing with a young woman, loudly trying to convince her to buy a sword. He insists that the blade is high quality and claims he is offering it at a special bargain price. But the way he pressures her makes the situation look suspicious. The young woman politely explains that she isn't a swordswoman and has no need for a weapon. The moment Silva sees her clearly, he recognizes her right away. She is Charles Orland, an important character who becomes one of the hero's early companions in the game's story. A wave of excitement rushes through him because she had always been his favorite character. Meanwhile, the merchant keeps pushing his offer, proudly claiming the sword is a sacred blade blessed by the Fairy King, so powerful that even a beginner could use it easily. Silva instantly knows the man is lying. In his mind, he laughs at the poor attempt to trick Charles, though he can't help finding her innocent nature a little charming. Seeing her standing there in real life, looking so cute and genuine, almost overwhelms him. For a moment, he even feels thankful for his past death and rebirth, silently thanking God for letting him witness this scene. His amazed thoughts are suddenly broken when a young man with messy, spiky hair calls out to Charles from the other side of the plaza, giving her directions. The newcomer walks over confidently and immediately points at the merchant, firmly stating that the sword being sold is a fake. Silva recognizes him without hesitation. It's Alan, the main hero of Brave of Asterisk. Seeing the protagonist of the story standing right in front of him feels strange and unreal. Silva also knows something else from the game's story. Alan is fated to eventually become Charles's lover. Alan kindly offers to escort her to the castle gate since she was heading out to gather herbs. Charles accepts the offer, and the two of them walk away together. Silva remains where he is, completely stunned, as if his feet are glued to the ground. Under his breath, he quietly whispers her name while watching them leave. Lost in his gloomy thoughts, he doesn't notice the merchant sneak up beside him. The man quickly insists that Silva shouldn't believe what Alan said and then tries to sell him the sword instead, offering it at a cheaper price. The merchant continues his sales pitch, claiming that with this blade, even a normal person could become a hero. Those words immediately snap Silva back to reality. His face grows serious. He gently reaches out and stops the merchant's hands before calmly refusing the offer. With a gentle smile, Silva explains that he's only a gate guard. For someone like him, a normal sword is more than enough. His simple answer clearly confuses the merchant. The older man frowns, calls Silva strange, and walks away while grumbling that he'll just find another customer. As the merchant disappears into the crowd, Silva's determination quietly grows stronger. He reminds himself of one important truth: he is not the hero. He's only a background character, just another extra in the story. That role belongs to Alan. This belief comes from the memories of his previous life. He remembers the endless days of exhausting work, where the only relief he had was playing brias. Those memories strengthen his wish to live a calm and ordinary life now. Even so, he still finds the characters from the story lovable, and Charles has always been his favorite. A soft smile forms on his face as he thinks about the future. If everything follows the original story, Alan and his companions will defeat the demons and save the world, bringing a peaceful age afterward. A sudden rush of excitement makes Silva clench his fists. He realizes that he truly wants to see that legendary story happen with his own eyes. His thoughts begin moving quickly as he forms a quiet plan. This world may be familiar to him, but it's still very dangerous. If he wants to survive, he needs strength. Luckily, he has knowledge from the game to guide him. In the game, his usual strategy was always to reach the highest level as early as possible, creating a safe path forward. Still, Silva quickly reminds himself that he has no intention of replacing Alan. He respects the original story too much for that. Using his knowledge simply means finding a good place to train for years and quietly raise his strength to the maximum. He would never forgive anyone who changed the original storyline, not even himself. Watching everything unfold from the sidelines will be enough for him. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when a familiar voice returns. Ma has come back. Silva's face instantly lights up, and he clasps his hands together with excitement, happily declaring that original works really are the best. Ma looks at him with confusion and asks what he's talking about. The older guard then chuckles, brushing off Silva's strange comment, and suggests they grab a drink together after their shift ends. Silva quickly agrees, raising his thumb with a grin as he says that nothing feels better than a cold beer after work. Ma laughs at his enthusiasm and jokes that Silva seems unusually happy today. Curious, he asks if something good happened. But before Silva can respond, a desperate scream for help suddenly echoes through the air. Silva instantly turns his head, scanning the area. His eyes quickly lock onto a terrifying sight: a giant spider-like demon standing inside the city walls, letting out a threatening hiss. Ma freezes in shock while other guards rush around in panic. Turning toward Silva, he asks what that thing is, clearly shaken. Without thinking, Silva quietly mutters the name of the event. Wedge Day? He quickly catches himself and awkwardly says it's nothing, but deep down he knows exactly what is happening. In the game, Wedge Day is a monthly event that happens before the main story begins. During this time, demons temporarily work together to attack the kingdom. However, according to the story, the damage is always minor because the hero arrives quickly and wipes them out. As the battle begins, Ma shouts orders to the guards, telling them to tighten their formation and hold their ground until the hero shows up. The demon is only level 1, so it isn't overwhelmingly powerful, but it is still far stronger than ordinary soldiers. Silva watches as the guards struggle to fight it, their swords barely leaving any mark on its body. For him, defeating the creature would be easy, but he hesitates. He doesn't want to interfere with the original story, so he decides that he will simply do his job and help hold the monster back. Suddenly, his thoughts are shattered when Ma cries out in pain after being struck by the creature. Silva's eyes grow sharp as he wonders where the hero is and why he hasn't appeared yet. In an instant, Silva rushes to Ma's side and asks if he's alright. Ma quickly brushes it off, saying it's only a small scratch. But when Silva turns back toward the battlefield, the demon has already disappeared. Silva clenches his fists in frustration, angry that the creature managed to injure Ma before escaping. Ma watches Silva's reaction with surprise, clearly not used to seeing him act this way. He even starts wondering if Silva had always been that fast. Meanwhile, far away from the city gate, Charles Orland is relaxing beside a calm stream, while Alan happily splashes around in the water nearby. After finishing her herb gathering, Charles decides it's time to head back. She starts putting her boots on again when a sudden rustling sound comes from the nearby bushes. The noise makes her stop. Looking carefully toward the leaves, she calls out and asks if someone is there. At the same time, Silva is racing through the forest, chasing after the demon. He notices how fast the creature is and briefly considers injuring one of its legs to slow it down. Then suddenly, his eyes widen in shock. He slides to a stop, staring straight ahead. Standing in the clearing before him is Charles Orland. Silva is stunned, wondering why she is there. His thoughts begin racing. According to the game's story, she was never supposed to be here. This moment is completely different from the original scenario. Panic quickly spreads through him as he realizes something is wrong. Charles is now facing a danger she was never meant to encounter. Just as that thought crosses his mind, his fear becomes reality. A terrifying demon with dark skin and white hair suddenly appears behind Charles. The monster raises its sharp claws, ready to strike, while Charles cries out in shock. Silva immediately shouts and charges forward, drawing his sword. He swears that the creature will not lay a single finger on her. Without hesitation, he launches his attack using a technique known as Zelench's sword-style spinning top. His body moves so fast it becomes a blur as his blade slices straight through the demon's torso, stopping the attack at the exact moment Charles falls backward. The demon collapses onto the forest ground, completely defeated. Silva calmly puts his sword back into its sheath. A short distance away, Charles sits on the ground, covering her mouth with one hand as she tries to process what just happened. Relief and shock fill her expression. Silva turns toward her, his face softening with concern. Charles looks up at him, her cheeks slightly red, her gratitude clearly visible. Silva quickly runs over to her side. His calm attitude from earlier disappears as he anxiously asks if she's okay and wonders if the demon had heard her voice. Still a little shaken, Charles assures him that she is fine. Hearing that, Silva suddenly freezes. The rush of adrenaline fades away, and a new feeling replaces it: panic. He slowly realizes what he just did. He completely stepped outside the original story. "Oh no," he blurts out in frustration. "I've really done it now." His embarrassed panic is suddenly interrupted when Charles asks him who he is. Thinking she means his job, he quickly replies that he's just a gate guard. Charles smiles gently and explains that she wasn't asking about his profession. She gently explains that she only wanted to know his name. Leaning a little closer, she looks at him with sincere curiosity and politely asks him to tell her. The simple request makes Silva glance away, a faint blush rising up his neck. This whole situation is already drifting away from the story he knows. Her voice pulls him back to the moment as she thanks him, using the name he had just given. After a moment of hesitation, he finally manages to answer properly, nervously saying, "My name is Silva." Later that day, while standing guard at the castle gate, Silva begins to panic. He actually spoke with Charles. The thought alone makes his mind spin. Turning to a nearby woman, he quickly explains that he is currently on guard duty and needs to leave. His thoughts keep racing. Back in the forest, he had no choice but to defeat the demon right in front of her. Now he worries that his actions might change the story's future. While he is still lost in his worries, Moss suddenly calls out his name. The older guard tells him that he has received a direct summons from the captain of the elite Holy Guard. Silva freezes in shock and asks if he heard that correctly. Ma gives him a grim smile and jokingly says that he doesn't know what kind of trouble Silva caused, but he will make sure to attend his funeral. Silva quickly begs him not to say such scary things. Ma laughs and apologizes, but then adds a more serious warning. The captain, he explains, is known for being extremely strict. He hopes Silva will only get a harsh lecture at worst. Before long, Silva arrives at the large and intimidating headquarters of the elite Holy Knights. 2 armored knights guide him through the long stone hallways of the building. One of them eventually confirms that everything is ready and gestures for him to continue forward alone. A drop of sweat forms on Silva's temple as he walks ahead. He steels himself, thinking that no matter what happens, he must avoid running into her again. Meanwhile, inside an office filled with shelves of books, a woman dressed in decorated armor studies a report. She is the captain of the knights. As she reads the document, her eyes widen with disbelief. Through the window behind her, Silva can be seen approaching the building. Suddenly, she slams her hands forward, shattering the glass with a bright and excited smile. At that exact moment, the door closes behind Silva as he steps into the room. The captain greets him warmly, calling him by name as soon as he enters. Silva takes a moment to observe her closely. She has beautiful silver hair that shines under the light, deep blue eyes, and a strong, elegant figure that he clearly remembers from the game. He recognizes her instantly. She is Elda Snow White, the captain of the elite Holy Knights. In the game Bria's, she is also one of the characters the player can form a romantic bond with. Trying to stay calm, Silva carefully asks if she needed him for something. Elda suddenly pouts and calls him dense, asking if he really doesn't understand why he was summoned here. At that moment, a terrible realization hits Silva. Somehow, Elda seems to know about his real strength. The fact that she called him personally gives him a very bad feeling. His suspicion is confirmed when her expression suddenly turns serious. Leaning forward across the desk, she asks him directly, "You're the one who defeated that demon, aren't you?" Silva flinches at the question. He quickly tries to act clueless and asks what she means. Elda calmly explains further. She mentions the demon attack that happened recently, and the report about a demon's body that was discovered completely torn apart. According to the investigation, the marks on the corpse suggest it was defeated using the spinning top technique. Aside from the hero, the only person capable of using that move is the captain of the Holy Knights, and she wasn't there that day. Locking her sharp eyes onto Silva, she demands to know who else could have done it. Silva finds himself unable to speak. Leaning back in her chair, Elda confidently tells him it's time for him to accept the truth. Someone with his level of skill, she says, should be serving the kingdom as a knight. Silva quickly tries to redirect the conversation. He points out that she herself excluded the hero from her explanation and wonders aloud if maybe the hero was actually the one who defeated the demon. But inside his mind, only one thought keeps repeating. If he admits the truth, his quiet and peaceful life will be over. Elda lightly taps her finger on the desk, dismissing his idea as foolish. She explains that the hero is required to report every demon he defeats to the kingdom. However, the defeat of the spider demon was never officially reported. Leaning forward again with a determined smile, she declares that she refuses to ignore such talent and demands that Silva join the knights. When he continues to refuse, her face twists with complete shock. Elda frowns and demands to know how he can still deny the truth. From across the room, Silva calmly responds that she still has no real proof. His answer only makes her more frustrated. She begins listing all the reasons he should join the knights, pointing out the many benefits. The pay is excellent, she explains, and the position comes with privileges far better than the life of an ordinary gate guard. Silva admits that her points are reasonable, but he explains why he is hesitant. If he became a knight, he would constantly be sent on dangerous missions. His main duty would be to support the hero and protect the kingdom. That level of responsibility makes him uneasy. Speaking honestly, he says he doesn't want to get involved with the main characters of the story. When Elda asks what he means by that, he quickly brushes it off and claims it's nothing. But inside his mind, his decision is firm. He has absolutely no intention of becoming a knight. Elda's expression grows colder. She calls his refusal a terrible waste of talent. Realizing that persuasion isn't working, she sighs and says she can't afford to be too gentle about this anymore. As she suddenly stands up, Silva looks at her in confusion and asks what she means. Before he can react, she shoves a document in front of him. Silva stares at it in disbelief. It's a letter of admission with his signature already written on it. He quickly pulls back, shocked that she would go that far. As the captain, forging something like this would be easy for her to get away with. But just as suddenly, her threatening attitude disappears. She waves it off, saying it was only a joke and that she can't force someone to join without their consent. Then she hands him a rolled-up scroll instead. Silva takes it cautiously and asks what it is. Elda explains that she will stop trying to recruit him, but in return she wants him to do her a favor. When he opens the scroll, he sees a sketch of a man he doesn't recognize. She tells him the man's name is Braggio Birdley, someone planning to participate in the night entrance trials that night. With a serious expression, she states her request clearly. She wants Silva to make sure that this man never becomes a knight. Hearing the name, Silva pauses and asks if Braggio is part of the well-known Birdley family. Elda confirms it, but her voice carries clear disgust as she describes the man as a completely hopeless scumbag. Elda explains the difficult situation she's dealing with. Since Braggio is from a noble family, she can't simply fail him during the trials without facing pressure from powerful people above her. That's where Silva comes in. Her plan is simple during the entrance trials. Silva will face Braggio in a practice battle and defeat him completely. If Braggio loses badly, it will prove that he isn't worthy of becoming a knight. Silva quickly realizes what she's asking. She's basically using him to sabotage the man. He thinks about it for a moment before asking for something in return. If he agrees to help her with this, will she truly stop trying to recruit him into the knights? Elda's face immediately brightens with a confident smile. She promises that the deal will stand. Later, Silva walks through the city streets with a heavy sigh. The task she gave him feels like a huge headache. Braggio may not be an important character in the story, but he still comes from a powerful family. One small mistake could change future events. Because of that, Silva decides he needs to be careful. He barely knows anything about Braggio, so the first thing he needs is information. At the same time, he reminds himself of his goal to avoid getting involved with the main characters as much as possible. After what happened earlier, he swears he won't mess things up again. Just then, someone lightly taps his shoulder. Surprised, Silva quickly turns around and sees a familiar smiling face. It's Charles Orland calling his name. His first reaction is pure panic. He immediately blurts out that she shouldn't be meeting with him, but then he quickly corrects himself, awkwardly saying he's actually glad to see her. Memories of their first meeting flash through his mind along with the promise he made to stay away from the story's key characters. Charles, however, doesn't seem bothered at all. She reminds him that he suddenly ran off after saving her and says she has been looking for him ever since. Silva tries to explain, claiming he had urgent business to take care of. Even he can tell the excuse sounds weak. Embarrassed, he covers his face and sincerely apologizes for leaving without saying anything. Charles watches him quietly for a moment before simply replying, "I see." Then her expression becomes more serious. She raises a finger and asks him something that instantly makes him nervous. "By the way, why do you already know my name, Silva?" The question makes him flinch. A small wave of guilt passes through him. Thinking quickly, he comes up with a story. He explains that he was once assigned to guard a party for nobles and saw her name listed among the guests. Charles listens carefully to his explanation, her face calm and hard to read. After a moment, she asks if that's really the truth. Silva hesitates before giving a weak reply, quietly saying that it is. At his awkward answer, she puffs out her cheeks in a playful pout. It's clear she isn't satisfied with how stiff and formal he's acting. She tells him he doesn't have to be so serious and polite around her. Just as he starts to respond, she cuts him off and says she actually wanted to thank him. Silva immediately becomes flustered and brushes off her gratitude, insisting that he was only doing his duty. But Charles doesn't give up so easily. She firmly says that she wants to repay him and is willing to do anything to help, even assisting with his work if needed. Then she finally reveals what she really wants. She's currently investigating something and hopes Silva will help her. Seeing her strange but hopeful smile, Silva feels like he has no real choice and reluctantly agrees. Later, the two of them arrive in the capital's lively red light district to meet an informant. The area is known to be a place the Birdley family often visits. The informant explains that because the Birdley name is so famous, it was easy to gather rumors about them. Apparently, the family has gained influence with the royal court by making huge donations. However, there are also dark whispers about their involvement in human trafficking and illegal drugs. As they leave the informant and walk through the busy streets, Charles glances at Silva with a slight blush on her face, which draws curious looks from people nearby. Silva focuses on the information they just received and says that based on the clues, their target should be somewhere in this district. When he notices Charles has gone quiet, he asks if something is wrong. Her face suddenly turns bright red. Covering her mouth shyly, she nervously asks where exactly he plans to take her. Silva's eyes widen in panic. He quickly insists she has completely misunderstood the situation. Seeing his frantic reaction, Charles bursts into laughter and admits she was only teasing him. She then says she hopes they find Braggio soon. From what they've learned, Braggio is known as a complete wastrel who spends his parents' money on alcohol every day and wanders around drunk most of the time. As they walk through a quieter alley, Silva wonders out loud where someone like that would usually stay. Charles confirms that Braggio is often seen in this district, but suggests they might have come a little too early. Right at that moment, Silva's stomach suddenly lets out a loud growl. Silva's face immediately turns red with embarrassment when his stomach growls so loudly. Feeling completely mortified, he quickly apologizes. Trying to recover, he awkwardly asks Charles if she might be hungry too and suggests they grab something to eat. Charles happily admits that she's starving as well. Her eyes light up as she points toward a nearby restaurant, saying she can smell something delicious and that they should check it out. Inside the restaurant, Charles eagerly takes a big bite of a hamburger. Her face fills with pure happiness as she enjoys the taste. Silva watches her quietly, a little surprised. He remembers reading in the game that despite being a noble, she absolutely loves hamburgers. Still, seeing it happen in real life feels unexpectedly adorable. After another bite, Charles suddenly looks a little sad and complains that she can never take a proper bite of a burger. Silva quietly thinks that it can't be helped since her hands and mouth are so small. Charles stares at the burger for a moment before deciding it's not too bad because she still gets the bun. She carefully takes a small bite of just the bread instead. Silva realizes that this must be how she usually eats them. Watching her, he becomes completely fascinated. Her innocent and cute behavior almost feels overwhelming to him. After finishing their meal, Charles politely thanks him. Noticing that it's already getting late, she asks where they should continue their search next. Silva explains that the district can become dangerous after dark, so he plans to continue the investigation on his own while she heads back. But before he can finish speaking, a loud slam suddenly hits their table. A rough voice demands attention. Standing nearby is a group led by none other than Braggio Birdley. Several armored guards stand behind him as he arrogantly asks if there are any empty tables on the second floor. Braggio already has a terrible reputation. Just recently, he threw a glass at a restaurant because his food arrived too slowly. Rumors also say he often forces himself on women. His arrogance is obvious as he loudly complains to a waitress about the lack of available tables. He proudly shouts his own name, as if that alone should guarantee him a seat, while several women stand around him. His attitude grows worse as he demands they make space for him immediately. With a sneer, he asks the waitress if she even knows who his father is. From their table, Charles quietly confirms to Silva that this rude man is indeed their target. She whispers that he's exactly as awful as the rumors describe. Meanwhile, Braggio appears to shove the poor waitress to the floor before mocking the staff, calling them useless trash. With an annoyed scoff, he declares that he'll simply find another restaurant instead. As Braggio turns to leave, his eyes suddenly fall on Charles. He pauses and leans forward with interest. Well, he mutters, staring at her closely. Slowly, he walks toward their table, his gaze locked on her. A wide and unsettling grin spreads across his face as he greets her by her full name, Miss Charles Orland. Silva watches the situation carefully, his expression calm but alert. Braggio bends closer, trying to sound friendly. He tells her not to be so distant and claims that the two of them already met at a noble's party. Charles looks confused and politely asks if they really have met before. The fact that she doesn't recognize him instantly irritates him. His expression darkens as he asks in a threatening tone if she's seriously saying she doesn't remember him. Charles closes her eyes for a moment, honestly trying to think back, but then admits that she can't recall him at all. Braggio's eyes widen in shock, and a small drop of sweat forms on his forehead. A second later, his face twists into a cruel smile filled with anger. Clenching his fist, he leans closer, his voice full of bitterness. If her memory is unclear, he says, then he'll take his time making sure she remembers him properly. At that moment, Silva quietly stands up between them, his expression steady and cold. Braggio looks annoyed for a moment but quickly regains his composure. Turning back toward Charles, he casually mocks the shabby tavern they're sitting in. He then offers to take her somewhere far more luxurious, like a high-class restaurant. With a smug smile, he says her beauty is famous and that he would love the chance to get to know her better. Charles answers him without hesitation. She calmly says she isn't interested. Sitting nearby, Silva forces a tight smile, barely hiding his anger at the man's shameless behavior. Even after hearing her refusal, Braggio refuses to give up. He begins bragging about the amazing food, fine liquor, and expensive drinks he could offer her. With a tired sigh, Charles points out that she isn't even old enough to drink alcohol yet. Hearing her reject him again and again finally cracks Braggio's polite mask. His eyes narrow with open contempt as he glares at her, clearly thinking of her as nothing more than a troublesome girl. Then his attention shifts to Silva. Pointing at him, Braggio asks if this man is her bodyguard. Before Charles can answer, Silva calmly steps forward and replies himself, firmly stating that he is indeed Lady Charles Orland's bodyguard. Silva believes that by calling himself her bodyguard, he now has the right to step in if Braggio tries anything inappropriate. Charles looks slightly surprised by his sudden declaration. She turns her eyes away, her cheeks faintly red, and awkwardly agrees with what he said. The moment she confirms it, Braggio bursts into loud laughter. He mocks the idea, saying that a man with such an ordinary, forgettable face could never be a noble lady's bodyguard. As Braggio continues laughing and insulting him, Silva clenches his teeth. A dangerous smile slowly spreads across his face as a dark thought briefly crosses his mind how easy it would be to simply cut the man down. Meanwhile, Braggio keeps talking with a smug attitude. He sarcastically asks if Charles's family is running out of capable people and even offers to lend her one of his own guards. Hearing that, Silva's expression grows darker. A wave of guilt hits him as he realizes that his presence is causing Charles to be mocked in public. Braggio then proudly gestures toward the men standing behind him. With a boastful laugh, he explains that they are all elite bodyguards, former holy knights personally chosen by his family. The 4 large men stand there confidently as he presents them as proof, asking if they don't look like proper protectors. Deciding the conversation has gone far enough, Charles quietly tells Silva that it's time for them to leave. As they walk away, Silva mutters in disbelief. He can't understand how former holy knights would lower themselves to serve someone as pathetic as Braggio. Behind them, Braggio's loud laughter echoes through the tavern. He calls out mockingly, saying he hopes they make it home safely with such a weak-looking bodyguard. Hearing that, Charles suddenly stops and turns around with a confident smile. She firmly declares that Braggio's bodyguards can't even compare to Silva. Once they are a little farther away, she apologizes to him, admitting she got angry when they insulted him like that. Silva looks genuinely surprised. He says he never expected her to get upset on his behalf, and the thought almost feels like a blessing. Then he adds that provoking them might not have been such a bad thing after all. He asks if she might want something from those men, though she doesn't immediately understand what he means. In Silva's mind, however, a plan is forming. This could be the perfect chance to gather more information about Braggio. But just as he finishes thinking that, several of Braggio's guards suddenly step forward and block their path. The leader of the guard steps forward and says they want to test Charles's claim about Silva. Charles glances at Silva from the side, and without saying a word, they seem to understand each other. Silva then turns back to the guards and calmly agrees to their challenge. The lead guard grins, clearly pleased to hear that. As Silva cracks his knuckles with a sharp sound, he sets one condition. If they want to fight, they must tell him every dirty thing Braggio has done. A moment later, a loud thud echoes through the alley. Instead of fighting, the guards suddenly collapse in fear and begin shouting that they will confess everything. Silva listens closely as one of the men, sweating and shaking, starts talking. The guard admits that Braggio's crimes are countless. He has sold fake drugs, blackmailed people, and even assaulted others. According to the trembling man, their master truly is a complete scumbag. One of the guards then reveals an even darker plan. Braggio intends to pass the night entrance trials and then gather information he can use to blackmail the captain. His goal is to take control of the entire Night Order. Silva quickly understands what that means. If Braggio succeeds, the knights could become his personal tools, putting the whole city in danger and allowing corruption to spread everywhere. Realizing this, Silva knows he can't ignore the situation. Now standing over the defeated guards, Silva calmly tells them that he won't report what happened tonight. However, he gives them a strict order. They must return to Braggio and lie, telling him they won the fight. They are also forbidden from revealing the truth about what really happened. As Silva finishes dealing with the situation, Charles walks over and calls his name. She looks at him thoughtfully and says that no ordinary soldier could defeat a demon so easily like he did earlier. Then she directly asks him how he became so strong. Silva turns to her with a bright smile and casually explains that he spent many years training in the mountains. According to him, the area was full of dangerous monsters, and he nearly died every single day while fighting them. That intense experience, he says, is how he grew stronger. When he notices the worried look on Charles's face, he quickly adds that she doesn't need to go through anything so dangerous. With a gentle smile, he confidently says that he believes Charles will grow stronger in her own way without having to suffer like that. Hearing his words, she feels deeply moved. Charles smiles and tells him that if he truly believes in her like that, then she will trust his words. With that, the tension between them fades, and the two begin walking away together. After a moment, Silva casually mentions that he's still hungry and suggests they find another place to eat. Hearing that, Charles asks if he would like her to treat him to the meal. Later that night, the tall tower of the capital stands under a sky full of bright stars. Charles cheerfully confirms that of course she will pay for dinner. After all, she says with a smile, it's only natural for a hero to treat the person who saved them. Soon, the day of the night entrance trials arrives. An announcement echoes through the arena, declaring that the 127th entrance trials are about to begin. The first test will be a mock battle. Each participant will fight one-on-one, and the matchups will be decided by lottery. Only the winners will move on to the next round. Silva stands quietly, holding the notice for the event as he gathers his determination. He reminds himself that he must stop Braggio. Still, he didn't expect to run into his target this quickly. Just then, Braggio Birdly notices him and points directly at him with a metal gauntlet. He immediately recognizes Silva as the plain-looking bodyguard from the tavern earlier. Silva remains calm and simply greets him politely, saying he's surprised to see Braggio here as well. Braggio responds with a sneer, saying he could easily say the same thing. He then reveals that his bodyguards already told him about their encounter. According to them, they had beaten Silva badly to teach him a lesson. Yet here Silva is, standing perfectly fine. With a small, knowing smile, Silva casually explains that he just visited the church afterward and bought a healing potion. He admits it cost him quite a bit of money, then adds with a slight jab that maybe Braggio himself wouldn't be able to afford one. The comment instantly makes Braggio furious. He angrily mocks the idea of needing a healing potion. Braggio then proudly gestures toward his shining armor, boasting that it's top-quality gear made from a rare metal called Oricel. Just then, an official voice suddenly calls out across the arena, summoning both Braggio Birdly and Silva to the center of the training grounds. Realizing they have been matched against each other, Braggio bursts into mocking laughter. He declares that Silva must be the unluckiest man alive. Silva, however, simply nods calmly and replies, "You're right, Sir Braggio." Then, turning toward the examiner, Braggio casually asks what would happen if someone accidentally killed their opponent during the match. The examiner answers Braggio's question without hesitation. If someone kills their opponent during the trial, they will be immediately disqualified. Hearing that, Braggio pretends to relax, acting as if Silva barely avoided a terrible fate. A cruel smile spreads across his face as he decides to continue the fight anyway. With a sudden snarl, he lunges forward and shouts, "Here I come." But his charge ends almost instantly. With nothing more than a quick flick of his finger, Silva knocks Braggio's sword out of his hand. The weapon flies through the air and clatters onto the ground. Braggio stares in shock, struggling to understand what just happened. Silva casually comments that his hand must have slipped and jokingly says Braggio was lucky to escape. In his mind, Silva briefly wonders if a stronger strike might have killed the man even with that fancy armor. Then a thought crosses his mind. What would happen if he attacked Braggio the same way Braggio tried to attack him? Flustered and embarrassed, Braggio quickly tries to recover his pride. He claims his earlier charge was only meant as a handicap, as if he was generously giving Silva the first move. Now, he says, he will allow Silva to attack first. Silva smiles confidently and accepts the offer. He calmly points out that Braggio's arm is already numb, meaning he wouldn't be able to swing his sword properly anyway. Before anyone can react, Silva suddenly moves. In the blink of an eye, he strikes. The force of the hit sends Braggio flying across the training ground, rolling through the dust before crashing to a stop. Silva stands over him while Braggio struggles to regain his dignity. Desperate to save face, Braggio loudly claims that he simply tripped. Silva quietly looks at him and coolly agrees, saying that yes, it certainly did look like Braggio tripped. The comment only makes Braggio even angrier. He shouts that he hasn't even used his full power yet. Furious, he accuses Silva of winning through pure luck and declares that he will now end the match, a fight he insists he never wanted to begin with. As Braggio raises his sword again, the blade begins to glow faintly. Silva calmly watches him without moving. Then he gently places a hand on the handle of his own sword. A soft light begins to flow from the blade as he quietly activates a magical enhancement. This technique is one of the most basic forms of combat magic. By channeling inner energy through the body, it can make a person as tough as steel. When that energy is poured into a weapon, even an ordinary sword gains the power to cut through iron. As Silva prepares, his thoughts begin to drift. Demons have bodies that are far stronger and tougher than normal humans. To fight against creatures like that and truly become a hero, someone must be able to control magic freely. However, many people spend their entire lives without ever even sensing that kind of power. Silva calmly studies his opponent, quickly recognizing that Braggio is wearing armor made from Oricel. Without that armor protecting him, Silva knows Braggio's body wouldn't stand a chance against him. A heavy pressure suddenly fills the air around Silva. The intense presence makes Braggio begin to sweat and tremble. Confused and nervous, he stammers and asks what happened to Silva, wondering why he suddenly feels so different. Silva only smirks slightly and reminds him that he's the one who said he wanted to attack. After all, no one wins a duel without actually making a move. Braggio takes a step back, clearly frightened. His voice shakes as he accuses Silva of trying to kill him. Then he suddenly comes up with an explanation in his mind. He mutters that some low-ranking nobles must have secretly hired Silva to assassinate him. When Braggio refers to those nobles as bottom feeders, Silva's expression instantly grows colder. The moment he realizes Braggio is talking about Charles, his gaze becomes sharp enough to make the nobleman flinch. Inside his head, Braggio starts thinking that Silva seems like a completely different person now. Looking into Silva's eyes, he becomes convinced that this guard might actually kill him. Panic quickly takes over. Desperate, he changes his approach and begins offering Silva money. He promises huge amounts of gold, far more than Charles could ever pay. He even offers women if Silva will just surrender the fight. Silva doesn't react to any of it. Calmly, he simply asks Braggio if he's ready and warns him not to move if he values his life. Terrified, Braggio cries out and tries one last desperate offer. He shouts that he can provide beautiful women, ones even better than Charles. The moment those words leave his mouth, he realizes too late that he made a terrible mistake. Silva's face twists with anger as he roars at Braggio to shut up and never say her name again. His rage finally erupts. In the next instant, Silva leaps forward and unleashes a powerful technique, Zelench's sword style, White Waterfall. His blade flashes through the air with incredible speed and power. A loud metallic clang rings out when the strike lands. Braggio stands frozen in shock as a clean, sharp cut suddenly appears across the chest plate of his armor. The metal armor slowly begins to split apart where Silva's blade struck. Piece by piece, the plates slide away from each other before falling to the ground. With a final heavy clank, the broken parts of the armor scatter across the arena floor. Braggio shouts in disbelief, unable to understand how his precious oracle armor could possibly be cut apart. In the center of the arena, Silva stands calmly over him. Braggio, now completely defeated, drops to the ground and hurriedly admits his surrender. Silva confirms that he gives up, then quietly lets out a breath of relief. His task is finally complete. From the stands above, Elda watches the scene unfold. A small, satisfied smile appears on her face as she announces Silva's victory. Standing beside her, a fully armored knight quietly whispers Silva's name in shock. Meanwhile, the audience begins to murmur loudly as people react to what they just witnessed. The growing noise makes Silva glance up toward the crowd. The moment he sees the spectators whispering and staring, his expression changes to one of concern. A troubling thought suddenly crosses his mind. He may have attracted far more attention than he ever wanted. Back in her office, Captain Elda sits behind her desk with a look of satisfaction. Facing Silva, she explains that thanks to his actions, they were able to stop Braggio from joining the Knights. Closing her eyes for a moment, she calmly promises that they will gather solid evidence of his crimes and make sure he is thrown in jail. She firmly states that his actions are unforgivable, then thanks Silva once again for his help. Hearing this, Silva's expression becomes serious. He clenches his fist and tells her he's counting on her to follow through. Elda reminds him of their agreement and says it's time to make Braggio pay for insulting Charles. Then she adds something important: since Silva helped stop Braggio, she will keep her promise and stop trying to recruit him into the Knight Order. The moment he hears that, Silva's face brightens with pure relief. A wide smile spreads across his face as he thanks her sincerely, clearly happy that his quiet, peaceful life can continue. Elda watches him, slightly surprised, realizing that he truly has no desire to become a knight. Her surprise quickly turns into disbelief, and her eyes begin to fill with tears. She asks him again, almost desperately, if he's really sure about his decision. Without hesitation, Silva firmly says yes. He has no interest in joining at all. That answer completely breaks her composure. Suddenly, she slams both hands onto her desk and bursts into tears. Like a frustrated child, she starts shouting that he should work for her as a knight and demands to know why he refuses. She cries out that she wants him by her side. Silva stands there, completely stunned. This reaction is nothing like what he expected. Watching her emotional outburst, he can't help but think this situation has turned into something much more troublesome than he imagined. Letting out a quiet sigh, he remembers that he should at least be polite. He takes out a handkerchief and offers it to her. Elda accepts it, sniffling as she thanks him and promises to wash it before returning it. As she wipes her tears, she suddenly grabs his arm and begs him to at least continue doing his job properly as a gate guard. After gently freeing himself, Silva leaves the office alone. As he walks away, he decides that for now, it's best to stay low and avoid drawing any more attention to himself. As Silva walks away, two guards watch him from behind. One of them comments that he looks like nothing more than an ordinary background character, nothing like the rumors they've been hearing. Not far away, Silva overhears another conversation between a pair of guards. One of them mentions that another demon has been spotted, making it the third sighting this month. Hearing that, Silva's expression grows serious. The news clearly worries him. From his post, he looks out over the city and lets out a quiet sigh, troubled by the sudden increase in demon activity. He can't help but wonder if this is connected to the beginning of the main story he knows so well. Sitting down, he reflects on everything that has happened lately. He feels like he has already drawn too much attention to himself. All he can do now is hope that none of these changes will affect the original plot. To calm himself, he reminds himself that Alan is the protagonist. As long as the story follows its course, a happy ending should be guaranteed. For a moment, he imagines Alan standing victorious like a true hero. But his thoughts are suddenly shattered by a loud crash nearby. Startled, Silva quickly turns his head, a bead of sweat forming on his face. He raises his arm instinctively as something lands with tremendous force, sending dust flying into the air. As the dust slowly clears, he sees a woman standing there, smiling down at him. The figure becomes clear, a woman dressed in elegant, dark armor, with a sword resting at her side. She looks directly at him and calls his name as if she has been searching for him. With a confident smile, she introduces herself as Kaguya, a special grade hero. Her sudden and dramatic entrance immediately draws attention. People nearby begin whispering, recognizing her as the famous Kaguya and wondering why someone of her status has appeared here. Meanwhile, Silva quietly tries to slip away, hoping to avoid getting involved with yet another important character. But before he can escape, Kaguya suddenly leans in close. With a playful and teasing expression, she whispers softly, calling him darling, and saying she's been looking for him for a long time. Then, without warning, she wraps her arms tightly around him from behind. "Where do you think you're going, leaving your dear wife behind?" she asks sweetly. Caught completely off guard, Silva freezes in place, internally screaming for help. Still trapped in her tight embrace, Silva listens as Kaguya begins introducing herself with confidence. She proudly declares that she is a conquerable love interest who appeared suddenly in the story, and more importantly, the only hero to ever receive the title of special grade. She boasts about her incredible skills, saying she excels in both magic and swordsmanship. Her strength is so overwhelming that she once tore apart a level 4 demon while laughing. With a bold smile, she even calls herself humanity's ultimate weapon, a true monster. Leaning in even closer, she reveals something even more shocking. Just like Elda, she already knows about Silva's hidden power. That's the reason she has taken such a strong interest in him. Even though the story says Alan is supposed to be her destined partner, Kaguya insists that fate has actually brought her and Silva together instead. Silva feels completely overwhelmed. Trying to escape the situation, he awkwardly suggests that she should forget about him and focus on her duties as a hero. Considering the recent increase in demon activity, he points out that her role is more important than ever. But Kaguya immediately brushes that aside, saying she has no interest in such responsibilities. To her, spending time with him is far more enjoyable. Hearing that, Silva's eyes widen in disbelief. He can't understand how someone with such an important title could act so carefree. He tries to argue, saying he has no memory of ever becoming her husband. But Kaguya simply moves even closer and confidently declares that of course she can be with him because she is his wife. As she excitedly starts talking about their future wedding, Silva feels like he's speaking to someone who won't listen at all. Still, deep down, a small part of him can't deny that the idea is strangely tempting. Completely ignoring his confusion, Kaguya suddenly suggests they visit a cafe she recently discovered so they can spend some quality time together. Before Silva can even respond properly, she grabs his arm and starts dragging him away, ignoring all of his protests. Meanwhile, back at the headquarters of the Holy Knights, Elda sits at her desk reviewing a report. Her expression darkens as she reads through it. Once again, the Knights have failed to capture the cursed demon. Frustration begins to build inside her as one name comes to mind: Silva. She can't help but think that if he had been there, things might have turned out differently. The thought irritates her so much that she slams her fist down onto the desk with a sharp crack. After her outburst, Elda walks over to the window and folds her arms, staring outside as she sinks into her thoughts. Her eyes soon fall on a small folded wallet resting on the windowsill. The sight of it immediately reminds her of him. She quietly thinks about how strange Silva is. Even now, in such a serious situation, she can't help but feel like he would somehow do something incredible. Her mind drifts back to a chaotic battlefield from the past. A desperate voice echoes through the chaos as a knight shouts, "The hero has been taken." It was truly the worst thing anyone could say in that moment, especially with enemies surrounding them from all sides. A massive horned demon stood there, holding the fallen hero in its grasp. Taking control of the situation, Elda gave immediate orders for everyone to retreat while she stayed behind to buy time. Reinforcements had already been called, and Kaguya was on her way. But Elda was badly injured, and she wasn't sure how long she could last. Still, she made up her mind. Until help arrived, she would do her duty and keep fighting. The battle was brutal. Against weaker, level 1 demons, she could still manage even with her injuries. But facing stronger, level 2 demons pushed her to her limits. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her body. A demon's claw pierced deep into her side. She clenched her teeth, forcing herself to stay focused. In her heart, she made a firm decision: if she was going down, it wouldn't be for nothing. A faint glow began to shine from her armor. With a burst of strength, she rushed forward and unleashed a powerful sweeping attack, slicing across the chest of the horned demon. But instead of falling, the creature simply grinned, completely unfazed. Ignoring it, Elda dashed past, trying desperately to reach her comrades. Behind her, the demon let out a roar and leaped into the air to stop her. It was a terrifying sight for the knights who were already trembling in fear. And in that moment, she remembered him clearly. He didn't look like a shining knight in brilliant armor. He was just a man in worn-out steel gear and simple shoes. And yet, he was the one who stepped forward without fear, meeting the demon's gaze head-on. Just as Elda was about to shout a warning, he spoke first, calmly saying they hadn't even reached the main event yet. Then, without hesitation, he rushed forward, swinging his sword wildly while shouting words that made no sense. Elda could only watch, convinced that his actions were pointless. But Kaguya, who was also there at the time, saw something completely different. Elda remembers clearly how he looked in that moment. To her, he seemed more impressive than any knight she had ever seen, almost shining in his own way. The memory slowly fades, and she returns to the present. Speaking to Silva, she explains that ever since that day, she has been trying again and again to recruit him into the Holy Knights. But no matter how many times she asks, he always refuses. Frustrated, she grabs his collar and speaks with strong determination. She tells him that she truly believes he was given his power for one reason: to protect this world. The next day, Elda arrives at the scene of another attack. A nearby knight greets her, surprised that she came personally. He quickly reports the situation. There are 2 victims, and the attack seems to be the work of a clever demon that left almost no traces behind. Based on the situation, he suggests that they should call for the hero. Elda responds that she has already requested the hero's help. However, since they still know almost nothing about the enemy, their main priority for now is investigation. She orders the knight to continue gathering information, and he nods in agreement. The knight goes on to explain that both victims were women. They had bite marks on their bodies, and all their blood had been drained. Because there are so few clues left behind, he estimates that the demon responsible is at least level 3 or higher. Hearing this, Elda's face grows serious. The situation is worse than she expected. The scene around them is horrifying. The area is completely destroyed, with bodies lying scattered across the ground. Clothes are torn, and the victims' faces are frozen in silent terror. Elda clenches her fist tightly. Turning to the knight, she gives a firm order. He must immediately inform all other knights and summon Silva, the gate guard, to headquarters. Raising her voice, she places all holy knights and soldiers on high alert and commands the scout units to expand their search right away. Standing between 2 armored guards, Kaguya leans in close to Silva with a bright, excited smile. She happily talks about how this will be their first mission together, calling him "darling" again. Silva immediately turns red with embarrassment and quickly tells her to stop using that word. Inside, he feels completely overwhelmed. Just yesterday was already exhausting with Kaguya constantly following him, and now he's been assigned to investigate a dangerous demon attack. Everything feels like a complete mess. The story shifts back to a few hours earlier. During a meeting with Captain Elda, Silva had asked about the mention of a vampire. Elda confirmed his suspicion, explaining that vampire is simply the nickname being used for the creature behind the recent attacks. She continues her report, telling him that there were 2 victims. Both bodies were discovered drained of all their blood, with clear bite marks left on their necks. Back in the present, Silva looks at Kaguya in confusion and asks why she is even here. In response, she happily clings to his arm and says with a smile that she does whatever she wants, and it has nothing to do with the captain who is currently watching them with a very serious expression. Without warning, Elda steps in and sharply slaps Kaguya's hand away from Silva. She angrily tells her to stop acting so shameless and orders her to back off. Kaguya, however, doesn't seem bothered at all. She calmly replies that she was only linking arms and even calls Elda too uptight. Elda, now clearly irritated, snaps back that they are in the middle of an important discussion. Muttering to herself, she forces herself to calm down and refocus. Then she begins explaining the situation properly. The enemy they are dealing with is most likely an evolved bloodbat, a type of demon that can transform into a human. That ability explains why it has been so difficult to track down. Its strength is estimated to be above level 3. Turning to Silva, Elda points out that even experienced knights would struggle against a demon of that level. With a serious look, she tells him that this is his moment to prove himself. The responsibility suddenly feels heavy on his shoulders. Silva gives an awkward salute and honestly admits his doubts. He insists that he's just a gate guard and believes he's only suited for simple tasks, not something this dangerous. Elda doesn't seem worried at all. She calmly explains that they are short on manpower and would really appreciate his help with the investigation, even if he chooses to work on his own. Her words make Silva pause. He looks at both Elda and Kaguya carefully, his expression full of suspicion. Noticing this, Kaguya tilts her head and asks what's wrong. After a brief hesitation, Silva says he has something he wants to ask first. His eyes narrow slightly as he looks straight at Elda. In a blunt tone, he asks if she has any hidden motives behind giving him this assignment. The question clearly catches her off guard. She suddenly bursts into nervous laughter, waving her hands as she quickly denies it. She insists that she isn't planning anything at all. It's not like she's hoping he'll gain recognition by helping out, making it easier to recruit him into the Knights later. As she keeps talking and laughing awkwardly, Silva just stands there quietly. Then, in a dry tone, he points out that she just revealed her entire secret plan herself. Letting out a small sigh, Silva realizes what she was trying to do. He explains that while he usually can't refuse an order for something like a simple investigation, he'll accept this one. But before he can finish speaking, Kaguya suddenly appears right beside him, smiling brightly. She cheerfully announces that if he's going, she'll be helping too. Silva is left speechless by her sudden declaration. Meanwhile, Elda slams her hand down on the desk in frustration. She shouts for Kaguya to stop, saying that her involvement will ruin everything. But Kaguya doesn't seem to care at all. She calmly says that she has no interest in Elda's plan, she just wants to go with Silva. Elda groans in annoyance and lets out a long sigh. In the end, she gives in. She admits that having more help wouldn't hurt and agrees to let Kaguya join. Regaining her serious tone, she looks at both of them and orders them to attend the upcoming investigation meeting, where they'll receive full details about the mission. Later, Silva walks up to a large, heavy door and knocks before pushing it open. Stepping inside, he announces their arrival, with Kaguya following closely behind him. The moment they step inside, all eyes in the room turn toward them. A quiet wave of whispers spreads among the gathered knights. At first, the soldiers murmur among themselves, wondering who the unfamiliar guard is. But their attention quickly shifts when they recognize the woman beside him. The room fills with curiosity as they question why a special grade hero like Kaguya is standing next to someone who looks like an ordinary soldier. In the end, many assume this must be Captain Elda's decision. Kaguya, however, seems completely unfazed. She gently closes her eyes, wearing a small, confident smile as if she's used to this kind of attention. Around them, the large briefing hall buzzes with quiet gossip. A round table sits at the center, and Silva and Kaguya stand slightly apart from the others, who continue whispering about them. Soon, Kaguya casually walks over to a table where several knights are seated, with Silva following behind, slightly nervous. With a cheerful smile, she politely asks if she can sit with them. Silva awkwardly agrees, and she thanks him before taking a seat. Leaning forward slightly, she lets out a soft laugh and comments that they're definitely standing out. In his mind, Silva quickly corrects her, thinking that she's the one attracting all the attention, not him. Once everyone has taken their seats around the circular table, the knight leading the meeting begins the briefing. He announces that the discussion about the recent vampire-related attacks will now start. He explains that they need to organize all the information they currently have. First, he talks about the 2 victims, both women in their 20s, who were found in the northern area of the capital. As the grim details are shared, Ma mutters angrily about how terrible these demons are. Sitting nearby, Silva listens carefully. A realization slowly forms in his mind. This particular incident was never part of the original story in Bria's. Thinking it through, he concludes that if this is a deviation, then the main characters probably won't be involved, and the situation might resolve on its own. That thought gives him a small sense of relief. He then glances sideways at Kaguya only to see that she has her eyes closed, apparently dozing off right in the middle of the briefing. Silva quickly remembers how the meeting ended. The plan was to expand the search area and set up night patrols across the city. He and Kaguya were assigned to guard and investigate the eastern gate. With their orders clear, he turns toward her and cheerfully says it's time to get moving. He calls her name, then suddenly realizes she's still fast asleep. He stares at her in disbelief, muttering seriously under his breath. Letting out a small sigh, he walks over to a tall, stern-looking knight and offers to help, forcing a polite smile. The knight looks down at him with a cold expression and demands to know which group he belongs to. When Silva explains his assignment, the man's face twists with irritation. The knight loudly questions Captain Elda's decision, clearly annoyed. He can't understand why a special-grade hero like Kaguya would be paired with someone as ordinary as a gate guard from the Eastern Division. His frustration grows as he declares that Kaguya was originally supposed to work with his unit, the Second Order of the Holy Knights. At that moment, Silva understands what's really going on. The man isn't concerned about efficiency, he wants Kaguya on his team to take credit for her achievements. The knight leans in closer, his voice low and threatening as he warns Silva about stepping out of line. But Silva remains calm. Without showing fear, he simply replies that the decision isn't theirs to make. That answer only makes the knight angrier. Pointing toward Kaguya, who is still asleep, he orders Silva to step aside, claiming the mission is far beyond the abilities of a mere guard. Silva tries to explain that he is only following direct orders from the captain of the First Order of the Holy Knights. Before he can finish, the man suddenly grabs him by the collar and snarls that they are part of the Second Order and don't answer to the First. Nearby, one of the knight's subordinates begins to look uneasy, sensing that his superior is going too far. The angry knight shoves Silva back and shouts that as proud members of the Second Order, they refuse to be outdone by the First in any way. But then, something changes. The subordinates suddenly start trembling, urgently trying to warn their leader about something standing right behind him. A cold, sharp voice suddenly cuts through the tension. "Be quiet." The entire room seems to freeze. The knight stiffens, a drop of sweat forming on his forehead as he slowly turns around in confusion. Standing on top of the table behind him is Kaguya. Her eyes glow with anger as she stares him down. In a chilling tone, she comments on his nerve for daring to lay a hand on her darling. Dark energy begins to swirl around her, filling the room with pressure. Silva, now free from the knight's grip, looks at her in shock and quickly asks her to calm down. But before he can say anything more, she moves. In a single blur, her sheathed katana flashes forward. The strike lands with a loud crack against the Second Order leader's armor. Silva can only shout her name in disbelief as the powerful blow sends the large knight crashing to the ground. He hits the floor hard, unable to recover. Kaguya stands over him, raising one hand as her cold gaze sweeps across the room. In a calm but commanding voice, she tells everyone to stay back. The other knights freeze, too stunned to move. Kaguya smiles slightly, satisfied, and tightens her fist. Looking down at the fallen men, she mocks them for their arrogance, pointing out how bold they were to touch her husband. Hearing that, Silva just stares at her, completely speechless, wondering if a special-grade hero really just said something like that. Kaguya then turns to him with a playful wink, casually apologizing for not holding back. Silva can only stand there, still in shock. As the two of them leave the room, he finally finds his voice and tries to question her actions, saying that sudden displays of power like that are bad for his heart. But Kaguya seems completely lost in her own world, happily sighing about how romantic it feels to go on a night patrol together. She turns to him with a bright smile and says it's only natural for a wife to protect her husband, especially when someone attacks him first. Silva admits that she did help him, but quietly adds that she might have gone a bit too far. Kaguya just grins proudly, ignoring his complaint, and instead asks him to praise her for protecting him. When she notices his tired, unenthusiastic expression, she points out that he doesn't seem very impressed. Silva can only respond with a long, exhausted sigh. Kaguya firmly insists that she isn't joking about her feelings. She begins listing all the things she loves about him, how he quietly takes care of others, how easy he is to tease, and how fun it is to be around him. As she speaks, her expression slowly softens, becoming more sincere. Then she admits the biggest reason of all. She loves the strength he hides from everyone else.